So Lauren is from, as of very recently, CB Insights, and she is the SDR leader there. And I'll give them all a chance to actually introduce themselves and give themselves a little 2-minute who you are and how you got to where you are. And then Sebastian is a SDR extraordinaire here at Splash. So, woo-hoo. And then we have Brandon Gracie, who is a sales leader who has had a lot of different experience at tech companies in New York City and beyond. So, and he actually also runs the Enterprise Sales Meetup Group, which is a part of this whole function. And he'll talk more about an event that is coming up next week if you would like to be at that. So yeah, without further ado, let's kick things off. So I'd love for you guys to take a chance to introduce yourselves more formally and tell how you got to where you are. Yeah, go ahead.
Hey everyone, I'm Sebastian, SDR leader here at Splash. Who am I? Big football fan. My goal in life is to own a football team and win the Super Bowl. I guess the mic doesn't agree with that. How did I get into sales? I was Namely's first intern, HR startup, Turner Corporate downtown. In my spare time, I would prospect for them. I did a good job, so over pizza, somebody offered me a job, and I've been in sales ever since.
Nice, awesome. And then?
Great. So first off, I just want to say if you are from CB Insights here, your exit is straight to the elevator and not to that room. But in all seriousness, just kidding. My name is Lauren Dadigan. I run the sales development team at CB Insights. So previously, I was running an inbound and outbound team as well. I also have experience running a full cycle sales team, so experience in all of those.
Great, thanks.
Hi, I'm Brandon Gracie, as Meg mentioned, along with Joe Basania, who's somewhere out here in the back there waving. I run the Enterprise Sales Forum meetup, which, as Meg mentioned, we have an event next week. I'll probably mention that 10 more times as the night goes on. I was working until very recently for a company called Handshake here in New York. I was the first sales hire and built out the sales team and sales function there. Before that, worked for another enterprise sales SaaS company out of Boston. And earlier this year, took off 4.5 months to travel with my wife through South America and Southeast Asia. And when I got back, didn't feel like working for anybody. So started consulting for this gap that I've noticed in New York in particular for early stage companies that have funding, have sales, have sort of proved that people want their product, but haven't really figured out how to instrument, scale, and process around that. So in my current role, I get to work with a lot of companies that are figuring out how to actually start that hockey stick curve that you guys probably hear about a lot.
Great, awesome. Thank you for being here. And
thanks for having us.
Yeah. So, and I did forget to say kind of what I'm doing with my career, because I think a lot of people are maybe curious if you know me. I recently left Greenhouse Software, and I was running the sales development function there, and have been running this, obviously. And I most recently, ironically, joined Handshake. So I now work for Handshake, and I am in a direct contributor role. And I will absolutely talk more about why I took that transition in my career. It was a really interesting decision, having been a leader and going back and carrying the bag again, but hoping to round out my sales experience. So I forgot to mention that, and I told a lot of you I would tell you. So cool. Now we can get started. So this is all around the handoff process, the relationship between AEs and SDRs, which I hear all the time. People are asking me, well, how do you align your sales team, your SDR team, and your sales reps? And because it's difficult. And there isn't necessarily one particular way to do it. But that said, there are things that work better than others. So we're going to dive into that. And I think this is a great topic to talk a little bit and really get your questions. So please do, when the questions arise, if you have one, jot it down or remember it. And we will have a Q&A session at the end. I do ask that you leave your questions to the end. I will not call anyone in. Cool. All right. So go into a little bit of, Brandon, let's start, actually, Lauren, let's start with you, and then we'll kind of go around and end with you, Sebastian, as an SDR. So Lauren, I'd love to hear at CB Insights, what does the sales function look like as an organization? Like, what does that structure look like now? And from a high level, what does that alignment look like?
Totally. So we are broken up into what we call pods. So we have 2 different pods now. I'm actually breaking out into 3, and what those consist of are we have AEs that range from AE3 to AE1, AE1 being our highest. We have inbound and outbound SDRs as well as adding customer success. We also have a product specialist in there as well, and that person is really just hand-holding really high-level leads and people that are interested in our demos and our products. So right now we're broken up into that way, and I would love to hear, obviously the different approaches, because this is my first time working in an environment where we are broken up into pods, and I find it very valuable.
Great. Yeah, actually, Sebastian, go ahead and explain how your sales team is organized. SDRs and AEs, and are they aligned?
Yeah, so yeah, with Splash, we've been to a lot of different use cases. So we split up the team kind of like a mini pod approach, where one team is with retail, one team is B2B, one team is higher ed. So the SDRs are aligned with the AEs, producing meetings just for them. AEs handle inbound, and then they all get shot over to client success eventually.
Okay. So verticalization, right? So aligned by vertical, and then inbound SDRs, are they supporting those particular verticals as well, or are they cross?
Well, the SDRs are all outbound.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, all outbound
All
SDRs.
outbound, yeah.
Cool. And how many SDRs are there?
There's
Dive
5
in a little more.
SDRs and 9 AEs.
Okay, 5 SDRs, 9 AEs, just for you guys to have the ratios. Lauren as well, what about you in terms of how many are in each?
We're pretty much 1-to-1. I think we have a few more SDRs. We're about almost 20 SDRs, and then I want to say 2 product specialists and maybe 15 to 17 AEs. Yeah, a few more joining. So.
All right, Brandon.
So the way I think for me to answer that question is with what I'm doing, I'm on my own, right? So I'm consulting with a number of companies. Is that me?
Could be anyone.
Peter's got it. He's getting it.
So you would probably know better what's going on at Handshake at this point
Yes.
than I would, because it's been almost a year since I was there. So what I would say is the transition that I've seen over the last 6 to 9 months since I've been back and kind of back in the mix is more towards what Lauren's talking about and what Sebastian's talking about, which is this getting pod groups together. I think the more advanced teams are doing things like verticalizing that as well, but making sure that a couple things are happening. One, the prospect is getting a much better experience on their end because they've got people who work together who are having pieces of the same conversation instead of this stagnated end when they talk to a BDR or an SDR and then they're kind of introduced to a new person who's got to ask all the same questions. And starting to see that happen a lot more with the companies that I'm working with, which I think is a fantastic transition. And it's also, I think, helping people who are in SDR roles start to get a little bit better understanding of the full cycle before they get to this end of the SDR road. And we were talking about this before where I think in the past, a lot of teams would have an SDR kind of hit the end of that 6 months or year, and then you basically have to start over with a new hire as you're trying to teach that person how to become an account executive. So I think that transition is solving both of those problems really well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've heard that it really is, you want to have about 2 or 3 AEs to whatever number of SDRs that you have in those pods. And the reason is, from my experience, I was managing SDRs at a company like NetSuite, which is a massive finance and accounting software. And when you had those one-to-one relationships, the AE would be really frustrated when that SDR would graduate, right? Because they'd get a new SDR who obviously might not be quite as good on their first day as that senior SDR was in their last day. So I think that's another really good reason as to why the pod system really does work. So great. And then talk to me about your current lead distribution engine. So how is that getting distributed amongst the SDRs? So yeah, how are leads distributed?
Yeah, so it's our sales ops person, Bailey. Shout out to Bailey, she's awesome. But she goes into Discover Org, that's what we use to prospect. And she'll assign, I think it's 50 to 100 accounts per SDR, and the same for each AE. But really the money is in there that the SDR works with the AE on those target accounts and really splits in maybe to the lower marketers, reseller marketers, while the AE is going after the VP and the director.
So actually, yeah, let's dive into that. So within one company, if I was your AE and you're the SDR supporting an account, so it's in particular companies that's happening?
Yeah. So you'd call the VP, I would call the field marketing rep. We would definitely line up our messaging so it makes some sense. But the end goal would be setting a meeting for that AE.
Great.
Yeah.
Nice. Lauren, what about you?
Sure. So we're actually, like I said, broken up in inbound and outbound. Our inbound, also known as marketing response reps, they are responsible for any marketing generated lead, which is a demo request, a form fill, taking interest on our website, downloading one of our newsletters, so really anything that marketing generates. And then we have our outbound, and they're responsible for really prospecting from the bottom up. They do have named accounts, so they are, like you said, we have a few SDRs working with account execs, so it's not just the one-to-one where they'll get upset if they graduate, but they do have named accounts that they get to work within. So we have a very large flow of named accounts, which keeps them busy. And then if anything comes in that's unnamed, they're more than happy to and willing to take it and then kind of just round robin it to any of the other account execs in the company.
Okay, and how many named accounts does a typical outbound SDR have?
A lot. There's really no finite answer. We have a lot of companies. I'd say a couple hundred.
Okay.
Yeah. But really only work with maybe the top 10 until we get through all of those.
Got it. Yeah, and what I found is to work off of that, and actually Lauren's new boss used to be my boss, so we have some commonality there. And so the couple hundred accounts, we found anywhere from about 200 to 400. You don't really want an outbound rep to be even looking at more than 400 accounts, and if that, they're really not touching half of those anyway. So if you have those 400, how are you prioritizing those accounts? So you can even within the system create a greenhouse. It was top, high, mid, and low priority. That was solely based on the SDR's opinion. And so that made it really easy for them and as a manager to say, okay, how many accounts do you have in top versus high versus mid, and what's that ratio look like? And we would filter out the low accounts and then put back in higher quality outbound accounts that lived within our database. So that was an interesting way to kind of control the amount of accounts an outbound SDR was working. So yeah. Brandon, any insights there?
Yeah, I think the best instrumentation of this is similar to what you said. A little less, the SDR decides this is the one they like the best, and maybe more using something like Infer that's scoring those leads and saying, just go after the A's, just go after the B's, and forget about everything else. And if you get to the end of the B's, start calling the A's again. The number that I love is like 80 to 100, because to your point, if you have 400, you're not calling the bottom 200 anyway. And then I think the best way to approach that is take that list of 80 to 100, figure out who the A's and the B's are, and then have a conversation with your account executive, with your product specialist, with your sales engineer, and say, all right, let's take a look at all the reasons we're winning deals here and figure out of these A's who are the super A's and start calling them first.
Great. And what kind of account mapping? I think that's something, and that's when you're going upstream, right? You're looking at kind of mid-sized businesses and starting to, I think, I've heard so many times, every business right now is trying to go upstream, right? How do you get your bigger clients? How do you slow down your sales process? And so, do you do any kind of planning with your AEs? Like, what does that look like, or from your experience?
I think there's a problem when you plan too much, and you can kind of get trigger shy. You spend a whole week deciding who to call, and on Friday you haven't called anyone. But we'll take 3 or 4 accounts where the SDR and the AE will work heavily. Like we sell events, so we'll go to the events for this company. We'll try to give them a physical presence for those 3 to 4 accounts. But aside from that, you're focusing on the accounts that you're working. Maybe you're checking out each other's templates. Spying on each other, sharing some ideas that would work. But it really isn't too collaborative unless it's like those 3 or 4 like super A's that you were talking about.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think for us, there's a lot of overthinking and a lot of people that, are constantly thinking, who's the decision maker? Who do I need to get in touch with? Which is great, but there's a point of just picking up the phone and calling someone in maybe mid-level and working your way up to the VP or director of where you need to be. I always say to my team now, make friends with everybody because you don't know who they can introduce you to or tell you to. So if you're calling a headquarters and you're asking just for a phone number, explain why you're calling, explain who you are, and make them understand like the whole background of what you're doing, so they might help you out in the future. It's rare that you get a VP on the phone first call for a conversation. So, I say like, if you can map out an organization, map out low down to management, and then kind of break up into director, those reports, and then also up to the VP level, and just try to work your way. It's kind of like a maze. Start low and then make your way up.
Yeah, great points.
And go see them. I love what you guys are doing, where you're saying like get out there and meet with people, especially if they're in New York. Go see them. Everybody here is getting prospecting emails. They all say quick resend. They all say who should I talk to, right? Everybody's doing that ad nauseum. Do something different. Get out there in those super A's and go talk to those people. And one of the things I would add on to what Lauren said as well is pick up the phone and just take 5 seconds to think, what do I want to accomplish on this call? And then you're calling with some purpose. I just want to introduce myself. I just want to set a meeting. I just want to ask if they read the content that I sent. Like, don't ever put yourself in the position of the phone's ringing and you're going, I really hope they don't pick up because I don't know what I'm going to say.
Yes, Brandon, that is beautiful. How many people have done that? Yes, I know I have. All right, so really helpful information. Now let's talk about what does that handoff process looks like. So as an SDR, you've got take a step back. Because that handoff, you're either qualifying for meetings, or you're qualifying for qualified opportunities or qualified meetings. So who is in the audience, who's just doing like raw meetings? Whether they're quality, there's some qualification criteria. Okay, something around there. And then what if they have to be qualified opportunities? There's a very strict criteria that you have to work with. Okay, yeah, it's about half and half. Okay, so with that, what do you guys do? And how are you measured? And then we can talk about the handoff process.
Yeah, so we are judged on the quality meetings.
Okay.
So you could set up 100 meetings, but if 98 of them suck, you're not going to make quota. So what we do is the AE will rate the meeting hot, warm, or cold. The hot you'll get credit on, the warm you'll get credit on, the cold you won't.
Interesting.
And then we'll set up meetings on the AE's calendar. In some cases, like today, actually right before this event, I just caught an AE on the way out. I was like, "Can you do this one?" And we sat down, did it. Shout out to Chris.
Amazing. Nice.
Yeah, so for us, I think this goes to quality versus quantity, and I think that's a big thing that everyone struggles with, whether you're an individual contributor, whether you're a leader, an AE. So, there's a fine line. Like, you want to have a high volume of leads coming through to your AEs, but you want to make sure they're qualified because you don't want to waste your own time and the AE's time, and also the people on the phone, the prospect's time. So as far as we do, like we're focused on quality right now, and we do have a system similar to here at Splash, but we have a point system. So it's like you have a core meeting, which we don't have many of. That's 0 points. Then there's a point system for like a low meeting, a medium, a high, or good and bad, however they discuss. But yeah, that's something that I think is important, but it's more focused on qualified opportunities as opposed to meetings.
And with the point system, if it's up to the AE, does the AE have a criteria where they say, okay, check this box, this box, this box, that means it's a 1 versus a 3?
Yeah, so we're working on that because I do think that's hard when AEs deem if it's qualified versus unqualified. But they do. They have a basically a qualification process that they have to go through, as well as the SDRs, and everything needs to be logged. So if there is if there's anything inconsistent between what the SDR says and what the AE says, then we kind of step in and figure out if it should have been qualified or not.
Great. So and just to reiterate that, there's a disqualification criteria as well that the AE has to go through.
Yes.
Great.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, I think no matter how you're graded and how you're measured, if you miss your quantity and hit your quality goal, nobody's going to care. And if it goes the other way around, you're probably going to be in trouble, right? So As an SDR, I would constantly be thinking about the quality of the pipeline that you're turning over. And the way I've always thought about it is qualified pipeline. Especially if it's not named accounts and you're talking about round robin or something that's a little bit more, this opportunity can go to somebody else, build the right kind of exit criteria that says if an account executive does X after this phone call, that's qualified, it counts. And then you basically put the responsibility for making that decision to the AE. Do I want to hold on to this opportunity, or am I willing to give this up to somebody else? And I think that's as qualified as anything can get.
Yeah, nice. Okay. All right, let's talk about the handoff process. So, when you do have a qualified, good meeting, what does that handoff process look like? Or Brandon, let's go back around. So
Sure.
what would it ideally look like?
It starts with preparation. It starts with not just like filling out a criteria set document or saying, look, in Salesforce, I filled out all my fields, especially if it's a good opportunity. It's the AE and the SDR spending a little bit of time together to make sure those things that happen in the margins on a phone call that don't get captured in a form are being transferred as well. And then really, if it's a good opportunity, even if it's not a great opportunity, a great transition, the person who they spoke with last, who your prospect spoke with last, is the person who opens up that phone call. And they say, this is what we heard last time, this is what I told you we're going to discuss this time, and you actually transition the opportunity over, instead of just a new stranger gets on the phone with the prospect and says, hey, I'm looking at these notes, and it seems like maybe you talked to my colleague about this, and maybe that, tell me more. So it's an actual handoff.
I love that. That is so, and that is actually like, with Aaron Ross we're siloing so much of the sales process that we're like literally siloing these people's experiences with us, right? And it's hard for people to transition. They finally have the trust. They're like, oh, I like this company. Ooh, this SDR is really great. And then they have this completely random other person calling them out of the blue, even though it's scheduled time, hopefully. But yeah, it's a really good point.
You see a lot of people miss those calls, right? Prospects don't show up for it because if you're a prospect, you know what's happening. I'm going to have the same conversation with this person because I know they didn't do their homework. This is a terrible experience. And that's when you start to see like 30% of your opportunities don't show up for the call. It's because they know the experience is going to be bad.
Good point. Lauren,
Yeah, sure. We do the exact same thing. So we have the handoff process as well, which this is actually new to me at CV Insights, and I think is phenomenal and kind of kicking myself for never implementing it before. But yeah, so we have, like you said, the SDR is getting all that information. They're talking to the AEs and really digging into what needs to be discussed on the phone call, what they talked about. And then they really are. They're getting on the phone and they're saying like, hey, this is Lauren. I'm going to transition you over to my colleague who will take you through our demo. And like Meg said, it builds that trust. The SDR does a lot of work to get in touch with people. So we don't want it to just completely, be cold and transition to somebody new. And it also allows the SDR to be a part of the conversation, to know what went well in the meeting, and also, gives them a chance to really say like, hey, this was a great qualified meeting that I set up, and gives them insight into what it would be like to be an account exec.
Yeah. And you learn a lot on those calls as an SDR. If you can find the time, and you don't maybe sit in the room for every single one because it would take too much time. But if you can take the ones that you were really excited about and you were so pumped to get, stay, right? Follow that sales process. That's how you're going to be a really good AE when you get in that role. So, yeah, really good point. Sebastian, what's your
You
experience?
pretty much said how we do
Anything
it here. We don't actually do the intro on the phone. I'm going to steal that moving forward, so don't trademark that. But like you were saying, it's so important to catch that information that is not on the opportunity in Salesforce. Those little things like temperament, things that they like, a vacation that they might have had, things that the AE can mention that will give them that familiarity. So something we used to do at Namely is when an SDR would open an opportunity, they'd walk right over to the AE, give all the information, like this is how the conversation went, these are all the Salesforce fields, but this is kind of the meat of the conversation and how you should proceed moving forward.
Yeah, really good point. And then just to dive deeper into that relationship, because I think, again, that is such a vital piece, is SDRs and AEs working really well together, right? And even within sales organizations as a whole, as leaders, you're trying to think about how do the sales leaders and the SDR leaders work really well together, so we're all saying the same things to our people. So let's talk a little bit about that. How do you ensure that the sales organization is really fully aligned? Lauren, do you want to start?
Sure, I'll start. I think this goes back to what we said about being in pods. And I mean, it includes the entire sales organization. So you're included together. You don't have SDRs at one table, AEs at another table. We're really in the day-to-day of one another, and myself included. So I'm learning a lot every day too, just by sitting and listening to people. And AEs learn a lot from SDRs jumping on and cold calling, and vice versa. So I think that is really exciting for me is to see that everyone's learning from one another and they're included into this one organization and not segmented by team.
Okay. And the pods sit together.
Yes.
Awesome. Very cool.
I think it starts and ends at the leadership level. I think either that tone is set through the organization that we are a team and we're working together. I love to say everybody's in sales. I think it extends beyond the SDR/AE. I think that it extends to sales engineering and to product and to engineering and to management, executive management. And I think that if the people from those roles are asking to be involved in the sales process, they're asking to come into the calls just to listen, I think that's really all you need. The rest of it kind of happens. It's kind of like having a kid, right? You can tell the kid to do things a million times, but if you show them how to do it, they'll do it. It's the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really good point. Is there I'm thinking like even one-on-ones or anything specifically that are spending time together other than maybe just sitting next to each other? Do you sit down and chat with the AEs about what's working well and what's not? Or how much time do you spend with AEs to really communicate?
I think 30 minutes a week is a good start.
Yeah.
Just to kind of go through like those accounts that you might be tag teaming or some messaging that might have changed. But I think it starts at a personal level. Like you need to know the selling style of your AE. You need to know what they would accept, what they wouldn't, what their workload is, and what kind of situations you could set them up in to succeed. So you just got to get to know them on a personal level. Maybe not be best friends, like that's obviously a possibility, but at least know a little bit about them.
Yeah. And those meetings, I mean, they can have some structure, right? Like there can be an agenda to say, we meet 30 minutes and we go through these things every single week. And you just are able to check the boxes really easily. And that relationship stays really aligned. And I mean, I think as a manager, being able to sit in on those every once in a while and say, I'd love to just be a fly on the wall and understand like, how you guys are communicating, what's the work style, could be really beneficial to an organization. So, great. So I do think that talking a little bit about qualification, and then I'll check my time and make sure I give you guys chance for questions to start thinking of them. So what does that qualification really look like at your company? What is really important that you have to pass along to the AE for them to even take that meeting? Lauren, let's start with you.
Sure, so we start with use case. I think that's the number one thing. Make sure they have a use case of why they are interested in our tool and our product, and make sure it aligns with what we offer. After that, decision maker. So you might have somebody on the phone that is really interested and will use the product, but are they that person that's going to buy the product? And do they have that budget? Because if not, it's going to take a lot longer for that sale, so try to include them on the call as well. Thirdly, we look into budget. I say budget and not pricing because they're two totally different things. So budget and just asking, like, do you have a budget for this project? Because then you get a sense of they're really off scale of what your product pricing is, or they are understanding that's going to be a bit of money for them to buy it. And lastly, just timeline. When are they looking to buy? Are they just window shopping, or are they like, is this urgent for them to really have it and crucial for their organization to succeed?
Anything particular that you guys qualify off of?
First off, got to be throwing events to use Splash, step one. Second off, it's definitely preferred that the company's using some sort of CRM, already is engaged with technology when it comes to sales. Then we have, different benchmarks on revenue, employee size, that are kind of flexible. But then other than that, it's just use case. What kind of events are they throwing? Is it lead gen? Is it brand awareness? Is it client retention? So they have to fit a way that Splash has been used before.
Great. Thanks. Anything to add, Brian, on that?
I would add why. Why is this person going to buy? You have to have some kind of answer to that. If you don't, I think that's awesome, and I think it's a required piece of it. And the only thing I can possibly add is why.
Yeah.
And if you're really lucky, what happens to this person if they don't buy? That's a beautiful question. I love selling fear. I think it's, other than selling money, it's the easiest possible thing to sell. So those two are, but definitely why.
Yeah. And is there anything that SDRs should kind of avoid going into? Because I think that's the challenge I know as an SDR of you end up learning a lot. You get trained really well, probably better than anyone else in the organization at this point, because onboarding is becoming a thing that people start caring about. And so you actually know a lot. And so you just kind of want to talk about everything that you know. And so what should you not talk about on the calls and really leave the account executive to dive into? Sebastian?
Pricing.
Yes, pricing. Okay. Anything else that should be avoided?
No, I'm just looking at my team now to discuss this today. But yes, I think pricing is my biggest thing. I mean, and I think more simplistic the conversation is, the better. In some sense, like just don't dive in and kind of just talk about every little thing, because some things aren't relevant to them. Like really find out what's relevant to the company and what their company does. Like for us, we have a lot of different tools in our product, and not every company wants every single tool. So finding out like what's going to be the most important thing for them, and what are they going to leave with, what type of knowledge are they going to leave with, and make sure you're really, really like driving that point home instead of just saying everything our company does.
I think it's awesome. I would say, don't talk about what you're selling. Give enough teasers to make sure that they understand what you do, but the first handful of conversations are about why, and they're about them. So don't talk about yourself.
Absolutely. Great. Good. So, let's see. I don't want to get repetitive. So, I think a good one, let's just quickly touch on objection handling. We will go into really full objection handling, but on an SDR call that the AE, this is an objection that the SDR is getting, I think those objections that the AE should know about, of like, what were the red flags? What were the sticking points that the person had on that very first call? So what are the most important objections to kind of handle, or the questions that a prospect will potentially ask that you should be able to really have in your tool belt as an SDR?
I'd say just the two things I focus on dealing with, and that will probably tank the most deals if you don't handle it right, is the concept of money, budget, pricing, and then also the urgency. A lot of the times you'll get someone on the phone, you'll tell them all the great ways that you can help them, and then they'll say, yeah, I'll talk to my boss, like maybe we could talk in June. So you gotta kind of dig deep and say, this is a problem you're having, an issue, a pain point. What does it mean for you every day to be dealing with this same issue? What is like the next step that you're missing out on, the work that you can't do because you're doing the same thing over and over again, and how will you be able to do that with the solution that I'm providing?
Great. Yeah, it's good pushback. Absolutely.
I agree with Sebastian. I think pricing is huge, especially because the AEs are trained to sell the product and sell the value of the product with the price. So you really don't want to give much pricing information unless you're ready to really sell what it's going to do for you. But besides that, I think decision maker is a big one for us. We like to have everybody on that call, people that have the budget that are going to spend the money. And essentially sometimes that is a VP level and they don't have the time to hop on a demo or a call, but we really do push back on that sense and push back and say, look, we do a lot to prep for this demo and prep to make it and strategize it to cater toward your company. So we would love if you have everybody that is involved in this process on the phone, so we save time on both ends.
Good.
I agree.
Great. Awesome. Okay, so I think let's end with some advice that you would give to an SDR or to an AE or to the leader of all of these things. So as an SDR, you get to give the advice to the SDRs. So if someone asks, what's the most important thing to know as an SDR when working directly with closers in this capacity, what advice would you give?
You have to know what type of salesperson that is. What's their demeanor on the phone, who do they want to talk to, who do they don't want to talk to, and just kind of get to know them as a person, like just the nitty gritty of what makes them tick.
Yeah. And I bet I can kind of just tell by your demeanor, you do a good job of matching that demeanor.
That's right.
Right, which I
Do my
think is
best.
a really, really incredible thing. But it is. It's actually like, that's a powerful thing. Like, I bet he knows his AEs well enough, and he's not coming out like guns blazing, right? If the AE is gonna get on the phone and have a completely different demeanor. So, yeah, that's really cool. Nice. And then Lauren, Lauren, you give the leader perspective, actually. You get to give the AE advice. All right. So for leaders out there, what advice would you give if you're thinking about this process and thinking about figuring it out?
Yeah, I would say just act as by example. You know, the biggest thing for me is I try to do as much as my SDR team does, and really try to get in the weeds with them and try to understand what they're going through and make them better individuals. I'm very one of those people that like, go work with your team. You know, sit down and make a few calls. Like, yeah, I get a little shaky when I'm picking up the phone now and then, but like that's what they're doing every day. And I want to help and lead by example and show them that like, yeah, this is the nature of the business, and if you want to succeed in sales and keep moving up, like this is where you start. So do all this grunt work now, work really hard, ask a lot of questions, and just, you know, go and kill it.
Awesome.
As an AE, don't bullshit me. Right? I want to know why I'm going to lose this deal, or when it's coming to me. Here's the red flags. These are the things I heard that are scary. Like, come with that first, and then with the good stuff, so that we can work together to strategize around that. Right? Like, you heard this bad thing. Awesome. Let's dig into that a little bit more. And let's figure out how we can sell around it, or if it's really going to be a deal breaker.
And Brandon was just being an SDR if you didn't catch that, right?
AE.
No, but you were talking to the AE, right?
As an AE, I would say don't
Don't
me all
yeah.
me all the bad stuff first. I want to know why we'll lose this deal. If I'm the account executive, bring me that stuff first, and then bring me the good stuff.
Right. Excuse me. Speaking to the customers, yes. Awesome. Okay. And then, is there anything that you've read recently? This is just the last one, and I definitely want to hand it out to questions and go in order of the speed in which I see the hands go. Just fair warning. So, any sales article or book or something that you really, really loved, sales related?
Well, for SDRs, Fanatical Prospecting by Jim Blunt, awesome book.
What I've recommended the
Yeah,
past 3
there you
times.
go.
So yes, it's a great book.
I also like coaching people into sales champions, and that's by Keith Rosen, but it really gives you a different perspective on having both sides of the process and seeing these individuals that are coming either fresh out of college or have a few years of experience and wanting them to grow into these like champions on a team. So whether that be in the AE role, in a leadership role, or a senior SDR role. So it gives the sides of all different types of job opportunities.
Read Steli Efti's blog at Close.io. I think there's a lot of noise, and Steli's is super high energy, and it's about the most important thing in any job, but certainly in sales, which is hustle, putting your head down and doing the work. And actually, my favorite sales book isn't a sales book. It's Grit, which is a really popular book in the startup and technology world, and it's about why people do the things they do. I think it's great from a prospecting standpoint, but I also think it's great if you want to wake up energized about selling every single day of the year.
Nice. Awesome. All right. Questions? Any questions? Yes. Chambray shirt, right in the middle. That's you. Yeah, that's chambray. All right, you have to speak really loud too.
Okay, so folks, loud enough.
And tell us who you are too.
So hi, my name is Joe. I manage a team of account executives at a single platform. A little bit different than we do. You sell to small businesses, not the enterprise level, but it's the same type of issues. The question I had was, what do you guys talk about having account executives 1 through 3? And like, how do you rate a 1 or a 2 or a 3? What does that mean? We just have account executives.
Yeah, totally. So we have a large team of account executives, and essentially like account ones, they're leaders. They've been there a long time. They can sell the product. They're carrying the most quota, and really just like that lead on that team. 2 is just like your middle sales execs that are really they're good. They've done it for a little while. And then 3 is they're like either just coming out of the SDR role. They're a little more junior, and they're the ones that need a bit more coaching, a bit more help, and carry the least amount of quota.
Yeah, and I would just speak to that in terms of career ladders, right? So it's a way to segment.
Yeah. Is it based on tenure or is it based on sales numbers?
Not necessarily. I mean, I think tenure is a really hard thing to base things off of. It's really like, how good of a seller are you? Really working your way up. You know, if you're somebody that comes in and learns very quickly and exceeds all expectations and quotas and KPIs, and they're 5 years younger than somebody else, like in their sales career, that they can totally move up. So I think it just is how hungry are you and how badly do you want to be at that position, and you'll move up.
Is it clearly defined for you? Like, is it like if you hit X metric, X metric, you become a 2. If you do this, you become a 1, or is it just based on like the manager saying, hey, you've done really well, I think you deserve to be a 1.
I'm totally happy to give you some thoughts on this. I recently built out an entire SDR career ladder of SDR 1, 2, and 3. It's very, very comparable in 3 different. We've done like a whole topic on this, which is it's a huge subject. So I can tell you a couple different like areas in which we've segmented that. Yeah. Okay, and then I saw one of you two. Yeah, it was you.
Cool. So I'm Lucas.
Yes.
I'm a BDR at Andela.
Nice.
So I'm interested. You guys talked about the question of price coming up in conversations and wanting to avoid it, but like sometimes you just can't avoid someone just flat out asking you how much does it cost on the first call. So how would you generally handle that situation?
Yeah. So what does it cost, Sebastian? Seriously.
That's a good question. Depends on how many events you're throwing. We have a huge platform. We work with huge businesses. Of course, they're going to be paying up to 6 figures. But I want to make sure that what we price you out for is what you're going to be using. So it wouldn't be fair to you to lock in a price at this time. I can, of course, offer a range based on your needs.
Okay.
How was that?
All right. That was good.
Yeah.
Hey, Brandon. What's the price? Just tell me the price.
If you get to that point, you tell them, right? You have to. You just have to. I think ultimately, if it's clear to understand, you probably have a pricing website or pricing page on your website anyway. I think what Sebastian's doing is exactly what you should do. And if the rebuttal to that is great, but like, give me the number, man, and you don't, you're not going to have a second call, right? So just give them the price.
Are you saying as an SDR?
Well, yeah, I think that's the challenging thing. So as an SDR, I say still no,
Yeah.
right? So I say, what's the price? Hey, I absolutely respect that you're looking for the price. Really my role here, I'm in sales development. They know that you're in sales development. My role is to really understand your business needs and really understand what you're looking to get out of this. We have a wide variety of customers across lots of different industries and lots of different sizes. And I would be doing you a disservice if I gave you any sort of actual number on this call. So I'll leave that up to my account executive. And then they push back again and you say, I'm a sales development representative and I am not supposed to be talking about price. So if that's make or break at this point, then this may not be a fit. And you let the prospect go, because if it's all about price, they're not someone you want to work with.
I would add that there's two things, like we have a pricing page online, but I would never ever email the pricing page. Like if they're that curious, they can easily go on and search it. But the minute that's in their hands, it's like they're looking at something without value, and I think that's really scary for a high price point product. And I also think, on Meg's point, like that's exactly what I would say. Like never, as an SDR, never give price, because you're really not showing any value, and you're just going to sticker shock someone. And that's like the worst case scenario. So, they have to respect that your job is to qualify and make sure it's the right fit for them. I do agree, however, there's a time and place. If you know someone's a very small company and they can't afford your product, like you can use that to qualify out. Meaning, like if you get somebody that has 10 people in their company, they probably can't afford a product that some of us are selling. So I think in that sense, you can use it. Or like I said, when you ask budget, you can say, do you have a budget for this price point? If they're saying, yeah, I'm looking at spending $10 a month, well, that's when you can say, okay, well, just to let you know, we do start our product at this point. So use it more to qualify out and less to get them hooked on for a demo.
Great point. Yeah. Sorry, I feel like that rose so many more questions, which is great. Yeah, the one in the back, red shirt, you were third.
One of the questions I had about aligning SDRs is compensation. Can you share how you bring them together in the common goal and also their compensation package?
I can also talk to you about that afterwards if you want, because it's more of a manager question. But yeah, does anyone have opinions about this?
Qualified pipeline.
Yeah.
I think it's that straightforward. You align your SDR's goals to qualified pipeline. Activities are important. Hitting activity-driven goals are important, but ultimately the result is what you tie it to. And if they're providing a level of pipeline that a win rate should justify a quota, they're hitting their goal.
Yeah, I would also say, and think of it as if the SDR is succeeding or hitting goal, exceeding goal, so should their AE. So that's the way I look at it. Like, you know, if they should be aligned to the sense where if they're hitting 100%, if the SDR is hitting 100%, the AE should be hitting 100%.
I think it was you, yeah.
So Channing, I'm an account executive based here for a Boston-based company, and so one of the things I'm always thinking about is like as an AE how to incentivize like my one-on-one SDR. So kind of two-part question. So one, like as SDR managers, how much leeway do you give or do you recommend account executives have to kind of incentivize outside of the regular structure? So like you fill your number, you come on a sales trip with me or something like that. That's part one. And part two, what do you see as like, if you can send to those, like, the best examples of them?
Yeah, I can take that one. I mean, sales trips, I don't know, like, I don't know how that would, I mean, maybe if they're going, like, if you're going to, like, an outside, like, vendor and you said you're from Boston, and going in person to a client. I think the biggest thing for us is not necessarily incentivizing, but, like, just be real with your SDR. Like, put yourself in their shoes and say, like, hey, this is what I'm looking for. Like, we're both looking to hit our goals and really do well here, so let's work together to get this done. If it's celebratory beers after closing a deal or something like that, you know, that's great. But I think there's a better way to approach it, and just being like more of a real AE. I think when you have the SDR to AE and there's a little bit of tension between, I think it's because you're very separate. Like, hey, we're AEs and we're SDRs, but just bring it together and have that common goal. And then, like, you know, high fives after you close a deal or something fun of that nature. You know, works really well for the organizations I've been in.
Yeah, I'd say one little piece is that if there's some sort of kind of disconnect between AEs and SDRs, and as Brandon said, like, leadership is probably who needs to have conversations around that. But I think another way is as a strong account executive on possibly a small team, if a couple account executives were able to, in a very, very tame, nice way, kind of approach the SDR manager and say, hey, we absolutely love what your team is doing. You're doing a phenomenal job. What are you guys teaching them as a manager? Like, ask me as a manager, really get my feedback, treat me as a prospect, right? And then say, hey, I'd love to give you some feedback because your team is doing such incredible work. That'd be awesome if we keep being as aligned as we are now. Here are a couple pointers that we've all kind of come up with. I would love to have sat down with more AEs and just been able to build my business as a manager better by getting a lot more opinions that weren't just the strongest voice in the room who cared more than anyone, right? So I hope that helps. But Brandon, what were you going to add to that?
I would say, I don't want to sound too sales managery about this, but I would think more about the things that you can deliver from a how can you help their career grow much more rapidly standpoint than can you take them on a trip. When I was an SDR, I didn't want anyone taking me on a trip. I wanted to figure out how I could get on my own trip as fast as possible. So maybe take them for a beer, for a coffee, pull them into more calls, pull them into more strategy sessions, and make sure that person's set up to be as successful as they're making you when they get to that level.
And tell their manager they're doing a really good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was you and the best.
Cool. I'm Matt. I'm the team lead at Abacus, SDR team lead. And I wanted to know how you guys balance personalization with emails and then volume.
these are whole topics.
I like this one.
All right, Sebastian, take it off.
Okay, I think in the industry, in the biz, as it were, everyone's kind of moving towards high customized, low quantity leads, which is awesome, which is great. But to use the analogy of the week, you don't want to get to Wednesday and have done all your calls for the week. So I think the balance is key. What we do here at Splash, because it is such a big market, we're a really young team, so we have those named accounts. You know, they're heavily strategized. You know exactly when their events are. But then maybe you have 100 on an email drip cadence or on a call once a month cadence where they're kind of fits, maybe they're C's or D's, but they're getting messaging, because as an SDR, you really are the Marine for the company. You're the first one out there telling people what you do, how you can do it. So I've always been of the mind that you gotta hit as many people as you can. While keeping it customized, like don't spam everyone, but it's hard to balance, but I like to do a two groups type of thing.
I totally agree. You need more than just a name and a company, because that is the easiest thing to no merge, and that's like my biggest pet peeve. If I get an email from an SDR that says, "Hi Lauren, I see your CD Insight," well, I know, and I know you can form fill that. So I actually typically write back to the SDR and say, like, I really appreciate if you personalize this a bit more and send it back to me, and then I'll answer you. And that's just like, honestly, like a learning tip, because that's what I want my team to do, and I want them to take the time to acknowledge who they're reaching out to, especially in those high-level roles and those large companies that you want to be customers. If you want them to be customers, treat them like customers and treat them like you're very interested in their background and what they've done and what they've accomplished and how you and your business and what you're selling can achieve their goals and hit their pain points. And I think if you have that, and it doesn't have to be a full paragraph, because I know it does take time, and I understand that, but you know, just something little. Search for LinkedIn real quick and find like a little blurb about them that they wrote and relate it to what you're selling, and you know, you'll get a response.
I got an email today addressed to Brandon and bracket company name bracket. So I would say like that's perfect advice. Think about who you're reaching out to, and think about what you would want that email to say if you were them.
And what I found helpful is think about your buyer personas, and if they haven't been created already, like have a C-level cadence, and then have a manager cadence and a director cadence and different cadences for different levels, and then also think about, like, if it's a CFO, like what are the value props that actually they care about? Because they care about ROI and bottom line, but the CMO doesn't. Well, maybe they do, but that's not maybe what's going to grab their attention, right? So think about those roles specifically and just create your own doc of like 3 bullet points for each role of the value props that you would relate to. That's probably the easiest, like, personalized but not strategy. Yeah. Oh gosh, I don't know.
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Nellie. I run the global SDR team over at SailThrough, so we're an enterprise software company, and I was curious, just to kind of go back to the SDR AE alignment, if anyone had, or in the room, advice on managing global AEs and SDRs, because we have a lot, our SDRs are headquartered here, we have AEs in the field all over, and they have a 1-to-1 or 1-to-2 relationship. So just curious on tips to really create that bond and mentorship there with an enterprise level SD or AE.
I say before we answer this, is there anyone in the audience that like has figured this out? Raise your hand. Jay, yeah, you guys should talk. Okay, so maybe not that many people, but now you guys, yeah, anything specific?
I haven't figured it out.
Yeah.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, I would say I actually, my previous company, I was also managing SDRs and there were AEs in San Francisco, so it wasn't like global, it was across the country, but I think the biggest thing for us was just having that conversation and really hopping on the phone once a week, like Mike said, you know, really connecting in a meeting and having that check-in meeting and say, okay, this is what we're going to tackle. Like, come to this meeting on Thursday at 3 o'clock and let me know who you've reached out to, who you're talking to, and really just strategize the best you can. Ongoing conversation is pretty tough because you don't see each other all day, but I would say like having that weekly meeting, or maybe more depending on how good they are together, is super important for feedback.
The last thing I'd say there is, if you can do with management, decide, like actually have some meetings where the SDRs and AEs are all together. though that has to be a very controlled environment or it's not helpful. So to say like, as a manager of SDRs, let the AEs know what you guys are working on.
Yeah.
Because I think that's usually what gets in the way. It's just that AE has no idea what the SDR is being told. And so if the AEs are in the know, they're a lot happier. Yeah. I'll give you my one little piece. Jay, I know you had a question for a while.
I was just comment on that.
Oh, okay. Comment.
I mean, I feel like if you have remote SDRs, whether it's global or in the US, I mean, the biggest problem for them is often just feeling isolated and not that they're always a part of the team. So you might be struggling with an issue or rebuttal that's just not coming through for you. People that are in the same room get to talk and share feedback about what's working. So have them on every meeting that you have with marketing, have them on every team meeting that you have. Try and have multiple one-on-ones per week with them so that they feel like they really do know what's going on. And more than anything, I feel like it becomes a place where you need to enable the SDR to push back against the AE. They often do the sales assistant to their region, and they might not be measured on the exact same metrics, or they might be being told by the person in their remote office that, hey, I want help, just help me out, scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. And if those metrics aren't perfectly aligned, it's super difficult for them to feel comfortable pushing back and saying this is why. There's tons of communication over communication.
Did you have a comment?
Yeah, just real quick.
Yeah.
Take what I say with a grain of salt, because I'm pretty new as an SDR. But I was actually just assigned an AE who is remote, and he visits our New York office like once every other month. So like I've never met him in person. But as an SDR, like I feel like number one, it does kind of start with culture. Where in our company, all the AEs and SDRs are very close, even just kind of personally. So I already feel pretty comfortable, like even though I've never met him, and kind of this very regular communication. He and I talk pretty much every day, and like we've been on a couple calls together. So just keeping that really regular and really kind of enforcing that like culture down of like we're all partners in this kind of a thing, I think really helps.
Yeah, if the AE is not making the SDR relationship a priority, and I hate to be harsh on this, but they're probably not a very strong AE because they're not following up their prospects because they're not following up their SDR.
Yeah.
So, last question. Sorry. It was, him in the, yes, you.
Hi, I'm Frank. I'm an SDR here at Splash. I work with Sebastian. Doing great, by the way. So along with the pricing thing, sometimes you get uncomfortable questions from prospects. I've run into a couple times that prospects that don't really respect the process. Like ideally you have a qualification call, then you have a discovery call with the AE, and then you have a demo, but some people just kind of hammer in, I don't have time for any of that, I want a demo. How do you guys recommend dealing with that like kind of impatient prospect who just wants to see the product right away?
We sell a really complicated product here. I want to make sure I show you the right pieces of it. In order to do that, I have to learn more about your business.
Also, from my end, don't have like a qualification call, a discovery call. Like just make it one call. Get everything you need to get out at one call. If you get somebody on the phone, you're cold calling, you get them on the phone right away. Like just have those few points that you want to get across. If they're like, oh, like I really got to jump to say like, okay, quickly, I just need to just a few more things because I don't want to take up your time later on, and then we'll get you set up for a demo. But just make it a quick quick discovery call. Don't spend too much time on qualification call, discovery call. Like it should just be built into one.
Yeah, I'd also say keep in mind that a bad prospect will probably turn into a bad client. So if somebody's not going to respect your process from day one, they're hammering in about one feature, they want to know price right away. Just think about what that's going to look like if it does close, and how annoying that they might be to the client success team.
And let your AE know that they want to basically not have a second qualification call and want to dive into the demo. Yeah.
I know.
Okay, one more question.
We wanted the last one, but we have such a good question. We really want to ask you.
Okay.
Our guys are so amazing. So
She's cheating the system, but that's the way it should be.
I really want to ask you.
So just like out of curiosity, because we have AEs that manage 2 pipelines, and it's like it can be kind of an intense thing to do when you're trying to hit your SDR's goal as well as like hit your goals. Something that happens a lot, and I don't know if it happens to any of you guys, is your AE kind of neglects their personal pipeline and focuses so much on the SDR pipeline, and they become somewhat inefficient as an AE,
Mm.
and you realize that their production goes down, everything goes down, they're just completely self-reliant on the SDR. So something like we're like dying to ask you, and which is why we cheated, is how any advice on how to deal with that, and also have an AE stay engaged and manage their personal pipeline and not just make it all about the SDR, which is a great thing, it should come first, but at the same time, we want efficiency and productivity on the AE side.
Do your AEs prospect as well?
Yeah, they do. We ask them to prospect, but obviously, like if they're in meetings all day, they have a lower quota that they have to hit as far as their prospecting goes, but they still should be doing it. And what we found out is that they just suck.
Yeah, I'd say from my end, and I haven't really experienced this too much, but what I would say is you know, the AE's job, they're the account executive, supposed to sell the product. They're not supposed to train and coach and manage the SDR, unless that's how you have it set up. But like really have them only focusing on what is going to get both and make both of them successful and efficient. So keep them away from the training, keep them away from digging into the prospecting. Like that's what you have team leads for, you have SDR managers for, you have other SDRs for. And really just get them focused on, okay, here are the accounts we're going to go after. You prospect a few, like you prospect 50 names in this company, come to me and we'll discuss how we're going to reach out and the plan of attack and strategize how we're going to reach out, and then we'll go from there. But I think just making them aware of like their job title, because I think some AEs tend to be a little more and too hands-on at some points, and they do neglect their job. And I know it's well intended, but I think you really have to pinpoint like what their job actually is and say like you just need to strategize and have that quick meeting and really discuss where you're going to go in the process, and then you both go do your thing and then come back and give feedback to one another.
And I would incentivize them, right? Do you guys have accelerators?
We do.
Don't let anybody accelerate if they're not generating a certain percentage of their own pipeline. People will always do whatever, especially salespeople, they'll do exactly what you incentivize them to do. So just find a way to make sure they make more money if they do it.
Great. Awesome. Okay, so before you all jet, first things first, thank you Splash for hosting us at this amazing space. So Splash. And a huge round of applause for Brandon and Lauren and Sebastian for being on the panel.